guys, welcome back to another cool project in React Native. So inside this project, we'll be building a full stack PVR 2.0 application in React Native using the Expo framework. So we have already done a PVR clone in one of our projects previously. Okay, so let's try to make it at least 5 to 10 times better than the previous one inside this build. So for the front end part, I'll be using React Native, and for the back end this time, we'll be making use of Sanity. Okay, so Sanity is like the best platform for content modeling, and it also helps in real-time updates as well, and it is scalable too. Okay, so and if you find this interesting, please smash the like button and also subscribe for more such content. So let's look into the demo first. Okay, so towards my right is the first screen that is being rendered, that is the home screen. So the first step is to select our location. So let's go do that. So over here I'm gonna select my city, that is Bangalore, and now I'm gonna, let's say, go into the first film, and we even have the filter option over here. We can filter based on the languages or the genres. Okay, so I'm gonna press on book. So based on the city, we are gonna give all of the malls present for that particular city and for that particular movie. And at the top we have all of the dates being rendered for that particular month. So let's say I choose the mall over here, and we have different show times that are being rendered. So I'm gonna go to the first one, and we have come to the theater screen. Okay, so this time the screen is a bit more proper than the previous build. Okay, we have different rows, and for each rows we have n number of seats. Okay, so let's say I'm gonna book the first seat. Okay, so it says 1 seats are selected, and I'm gonna press on proceed. Okay, we can pretty much add some items as snacks, or you can pretty much continue if you wanna skip this part. So I'm gonna add, let's say, one product, and I'm gonna press on proceed. So this will be taken to the confirmation screen, and if I press on the pay button after reading all of these details, that is basically the name, the language, and the mall which we selected, and pretty much the total details are shown over here, and we have the pay button. So this time we have implemented the Rezo Pay gateway. Okay, so let's pretty much go and pay that particular amount, and pretty much it is in test mode itself. Okay, so we can use the card, UPI, or net banking, or pretty much these two options. So I'm gonna go for UPI, and I'm gonna enter the UPI ID. Okay, like this, and I'm pretty much gonna press pay now. Okay, so it's gonna take some time for processing, and there you go, the payment is successful. And after waiting for a couple of seconds, it's gonna take us to the ticket screen. This is the final screen that we have, with which our movie we have booked for that particular show time and for that particular date, and in our backend we are storing that particular seat which we have booked, and it is blocked currently, such that no one can come and book it again, right? So if you press on return, pretty much you're coming to the final screen, I mean the first home screen. Okay, so that's the basic workflow of the application. Okay, so if you find this interesting, smash the like button, and let's get started now. So we'll look into the authentication part as well in the second video. Okay, so we'll be making use of any one of the providers and then logging in users. So the first thing inside this video is to create an Expo Manage project. So let's go do that. So firstly, inside my terminal, let me go to my build folder over here, like this, and then I'm gonna say Expo init, or the project name. So I'm gonna say PVR 2.0 project, something like this, and then I'm gonna press on enter. So this should ask us to choose a template. We're going to choose the first one, that is the blank template, and this should create us the project structure for us. Okay, so basically it's going to create this particular folder, that is PVR 2.0 project, inside my build folder, and then after that we're going to go into that folder and then start looking into the basic boilerplate code that Expo has given us. So let's give it some time. It's currently installing the JavaScript dependencies. Yeah, I think it's installed. So let's go to this particular folder. Okay, and then I'm going to say code dot. Okay, code is not found. Yeah, I think we can pretty much manually open up the folder like this. So I'm going to go into the build folder and then PVR 2.2 project, and this is our main app.js, right? So this is the starting point of our application. So we'll be building our application right from scratch. Okay, so basically inside my app.js we can see a return block which is just going to return a view, and inside that view we have a basic text which says open up app.js to start working on your app. right? So the first step is to make our app work. So for that, I'm going to open up my terminal, and then I'm going to say expo start so that we can see something on the screen. Okay, so expo developer tools running. Yeah, so now let's open up the expo developer tools on Chrome. Okay, so firstly, towards our left we have different options so that we can view our app. Okay, so the first one is on Android device or emulator, and we have the second option as iOS simulator, and the third one is web browser, or we have these two options, that is send link with email or publish or republish project, or we can even view this application on our own phone by scanning this particular QR code. Okay, so I'm gonna select the second option, that is the iOS simulator, and wait for it to install the app. Okay, so when the app loads, pretty much we should be seeing this particular text, right? Because that's what we are rendering inside our main app.js. So let's give it some time, and it should open in just a bit. Yeah, I guess it's almost done. Okay, so yeah, as you can see, we are able to see the text on the screen, okay, which says I've opened up app.js to start working on your app. Okay, so it is currently at the center part because of the default style that they've given. That is because of, align items of center and justify content of center. Okay, so now let's start building up the application. So the first step is to initialize our bottom tab navigator. So if you checked out the first part of the video, we had something called as the home, and we had something called as a profile, right? So we'll be initializing navigation first into the application. So I'm going to open up a new terminal, and I'm going to head over to React navigation. Okay, and the first link, read docs, and firstly we need to install this one, that is React navigation / native. So I'm going to copy that and paste it over here. Okay, so the next thing we are interested in is this one, that is React Native Screens and React Native Safe Area Context. So if you are using an Expo Managed project, we need to follow this piece of code. So I'm going to copy that out, and I'm going to paste it over here. Okay, that part is done. So the next thing is we're going to go into Hello React Navigation, and we're going to install the native stack. So pretty much copy that piece of code and then paste it over here. Okay, so the next thing we want is the React Native bottom tabs. Okay, so let's search for that. Okay, so the first link, and pretty much we're going to copy this piece of code. Okay, I'm going to paste it over here. So pretty much all of our dependencies should have been installed. As you can see, everything has been installed. Okay, so the next step is we're going to create our folders. Okay, so I'm going to create pretty much 3 folders. One is for our components like this, and one is for our screens. Okay, and let's say one more is for our navigation. Okay, so the first thing we are looking into is navigation part, that is the bottom tab navigation. So firstly I'm going to press on navigation, new file. I'm gonna say stack navigator.js. Okay, so inside the stack navigator file, let's start writing all of our code. Okay, so firstly I'm going to initialize 2 stacks, that is const profile stack equals to create native stack navigator. Okay, so let's just check if the spelling is right or if the import is right from over here, that is Hello React Navigation. Yeah, I think it should be create native stack navigator. Yeah, it is right. So the next thing we are looking into is the home stack. So I'm going to say const home stack equals to create native stack navigator again. Okay, it's already imported. Okay, so the next thing is we're going to define both of these screens, right? So I'm going to say function home stack screens. So inside this function, all of the screens that are coming under the home screen are going to come over here. Okay, so I'm going to say not an arrow function. So firstly we're going to return something, that is the home stack.navigator. homestack.navigator like this. So inside the homestack.navigator, we are going to write our first screen, that is the homestack.screen. Okay, I'm going to make use of a self-closing tag. So for this screen, it's going to have a name, that is the home screen. Okay, so pretty much let's create a home screen because it is not present. So I'm going to go to the screens folder, new file, home screen.js. okay, rnfes to get the shorthand snippet. Okay, so to get the shorthand snippet, you need to have installed ES7 inside your systems. That is, if you go to the extensions tab, I think, yeah, this one needs to be installed to get all of the shorthand code snippets, right? So let's come back to our stack navigator. So the name is going to be home screen and component is going to be home screen. Let's import that from the screens folder as such, like this. Okay, and if there are any options, we can pretty much give it, right? So the next thing we're going to define is our second function, that is our function profile stack screens. Okay, so here also we're going to say return. So I'm going to say return. So in this case, it's going to be profile stack dot navigator. Inside this, we're going to have a first screen, that is profile stack dot screen. Okay, so let's go and create a profile screen inside a screens folder since it's not present. So new file, I'm going to say profile screen dot js rnfes to get the shorthand snippet and save the file. So now let's write the remaining part, that is the name. You're going to give the name as profile and the component is going to be, let's say, profile screen. Okay, let's import it from the screens folder like this. So save the file. So the next thing we're going to initialize is our bottom tab navigator, right? So we're going to initialize that. So I'm going to say const tab equals to create native bottom tab navigator, this one, and also import it like this. Okay, so after that, I'm going to create my new function, that is function navigation. Okay, so here I'm going to return my main navigation container for the app, right? So I'm going to say navigation container imported from react navigation / native as such, like this. So inside the navigation container, we're going to have two tabs, right? One is for the home screen and second one is for the profile part, right? So I'm going to say tab dot navigator, and under this we have our tab dot screen. Okay, so the name is going to be home for this. Okay, and after that we're going to pass the component. So the component here is going to be this home stack screens, right? So it's going to contain all of our screens that's going to come over here. So I'm going to say component as home stack screens, and after that we're going to provide some options that are required. So the first one is going to be our tab bar label. So it's going to be of home. Okay, and after that the tab bar label style. So for this I'm going to give a color and it's going to be black. Okay, let's format once. Yeah, so tab bar label is home and tab bar style is, it's going to be black, and I'm going to say header shown should be false. Okay, and the next thing we have is, of course, the tab bar icon. Okay, so the tab bar icon is going to take in a prop that is focused. So in case if it is focused, we're going to show something. Okay, so I'm going to say focused something, that is some icon, else some other icon. Okay, so let's go get the home icon first. So I'm going to go over to Chrome and then search for export.icons.fii, the first link, and let's pretty much search for home. So this is the one which we want if it is focused. So the first step is to import the icon family. Okay, so I'm gonna paste it over here, and the next thing is pretty much copy the component and we're gonna paste it over here, that is if it is focused. And if it is not focused, we want let's say this one from design. Okay, so again import the icon family first and paste it over here and copy the render component code. And if it is not focused, I want to show this icon. So pretty much format and save the file. Okay, so similarly we're gonna design the second part of the tab screen, right? That is for the profiles. Okay, so the name is gonna be profile screen. Okay, so the tab bar label in this case is gonna be profile. Okay, so instead of home stack screens, we're gonna show the profile stack screens. Okay, so let's paste it over here. And yeah, so this is gonna remain same, and this needs to be changed, right? So for the icon, let's look for the profile icon. So profile of person. Yeah, we can pretty much use this one. So if it is focused from icons, import the icon family first like this and copy the render component code. And if it is focused, we're gonna we're gonna use this code, that is the person's icon. And if it is not focused, I'm gonna use it from icons again, that is the outlined version of it over here. Okay, so save the file, and the next thing is we're gonna export this navigation. So I'm gonna say export default navigation. Okay, so there you go. So the next step is we are going to import the navigation inside our main app.js. Okay, so let's do that. So inside app.js, okay, yeah, so pretty much let's remove everything and make use of a fragment. Okay, so the first thing is let's pretty much import navigation from the navigation folder like this. Okay, so hopefully pretty much everything should work if we have not done any mistakes. So let's check that out. It's still refreshing. Okay, I think we need to refresh once more and then it should probably work. So let's refresh the app and open it up once again. Okay, and there you go, it's properly working, right? So this is a home screen and this is a profile screen. Okay, so the basic initialization of the bottom tab navigator has been done, right? So the next thing is we're going to design the header part of the home screen, where we can see the username towards the left, and towards the right we have the notification icon as well as the location icon to select our location. Okay, so let's do that part. So to design the header part inside the home screen, firstly I'll be making use of something called as an use layout effect inside my home screen. So let me initialize that first. So I'm going to say use layout effect. Okay, so the syntax is pretty much similar to use effect. Okay, so let me import use layout effect from the correct one, that is from React, and remove this. Okay, so firstly let's initialize my navigation equals to use navigation. Okay, so towards the left part we have the username, and towards the right part we have two icons, that is the notification icon as well as the location icon. Okay, so for that reason let's start styling that out. So I'm going to say navigation dot set options. So firstly I'm going to target the left part, so I'm going to say header left. It's going to take in a function, and in this case I'm just going to return the text. I'm going to provide a hard-coded value which says hello with the username like this. Okay, so as you can see, it's working properly. Okay, so but we do not want the home screen. Okay, so to remove that, I'm gonna go into the stack navigator and pretty much provide some options. So let's say I just write the title and just pass in inverted commas, it's gonna go off. Okay, there you go, that's working fine. Okay, so let's come back to the home screen. So the next thing after the header left is we have the header style. So it's gonna take in a bunch of properties. That is, first one is gonna be background color. It's gonna have this color code. Okay, and I'm gonna provide a shadow color as well. It's gonna be transparent, and shadow opacity, it's gonna be 0.3. Okay, and after that we have is our shadow offset. So we need to provide the width, in this case -1, and height is gonna be 1. And the final one we have is the shadow radius. So we can pretty much copy all of these values and save the file. Okay, as you can see, the background color has been applied. So the next thing we'll be focusing on is the right part, which contains the icons. So for that we have something called as header right. Okay, so here in this case I'm going to return a pressable like this from React Native, and let me get the icons. Okay, so the first one is the notification icon. So let's search for that. So I'm going to use it from iron icons. So firstly import it out and copy that into component code. So the first thing that's going to come is the notification icon. So the second one we have is the location icon. So copy that into component code. It's already from iron icons, so just paste it over here. I think that's working fine. So for the pressable, I'm going to say style. It's going to have flex direction of row, align items of center, and let's say a gap of 4. Okay, yeah, I think that's looking better. So the next thing is we have the text that is going to contain the city name. So I'm going to say pressable. Okay, so actually we're going to make the text as animated, because we're going to provide some animations to it. So I'm going to say animated, import from React Native dot text. So firstly we're going to hard code the text, and once when we initialize our places screen, then we're going to make it dynamic. Okay, so I'm going to say text with any city name and save the file. Okay, so the next step is we're gonna initialize our animation constant over here. So I'm gonna say const move animation equals to new animated dot value. Initially I'm gonna provide a value of 0. Now I'm gonna provide the styles for the animated text. So I'm gonna say style. So it's gonna take in an array of styles. That is, the first one is gonna be styles.text. Okay, and after that I'm going to provide the transform value. So transform translate x, it's going to be move animation. Okay, so let's write the style for this text. So it's going to be pretty simple. Just we're going to provide is the font size for this of, let's say, 15 or 16. Okay, so now we're going to initialize a use effect so that our animation starts working. So the way the animation works is, I want the text to keep moving from right to left. Okay, it should be moving in the loop, that is, it should not stop, right? So let's make that work. So import use effect from React. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to say over here is animated dot loop, and here I'm going to say animated dot timing. It's pretty much going to take in our move animation value, and we have to provide the 2 value. So I want to move from right to left, that is to negative side. So I'm going to say 2 value as -30, and the duration is going to be 2000, and use native driver, I'm going to set it to be true. Okay, and after that Pretty much let's save it, and hopefully we should see the text moving from right side towards the left. Okay, nothing is happening. Okay, because we have not started the animation. So to start the animation, so over here for this loop where we have written animator.loop, I'm going to say dot start. So pretty much let's save the file, and there you go. The text is moving from right to left, that is continuously, okay, because we have put it inside of a loop. So that's it about the animation text part. So the next thing we'll be designing is the places screen. So let's go ahead and create our screen first. So screens folder, I'm going to say new file, places screen .js. Okay, rnfes to get the shorthand snippet. Save the file. Let's include this places screen inside of our home stack screens. So let's come to our stack navigator, and over here I'm going to say home stack dot screen, name is going to be places, component is going to be places screen. Okay, import that from the screens folder like this and save the file. So let's come back to the home screen, and we're going to initialize on press event on the icon as well as the text. So here I'm going to say on press, we're going to say navigation dot navigate. So here we need to provide the name of the screen we want to navigate to. Okay, so inside the stack navigator, the name we gave was places. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to say navigation.navigate to the places screen. Save the file. So the same thing I'm going to copy for this one as well. Okay, so let's give that a try. And there you go, we have come to the places screen. Okay, so over here we're going to render a set of places, and the user can select any one of the place, and after selecting, that place should be selected as the main place, and it should come over here. Okay, we're going to make it dynamic. So let's start designing the places screen now. So firstly, we look into the header part of the places screen. Okay, so we'll style that. It should look something like this, right? So firstly, again, I'll be making use of the use layout effect inside my places screen as well. So I'm going to say use layout effect. Okay, and let's import use layout effect from React. Okay, let's pretty much copy this and import it like this, and let's initialize our navigation as well. So I'm going to say const navigation equals to use navigation. Okay, and I'm going to write navigation dot set options. I'm going to say header title. I don't want the title to be seen, so I'm just going to pass an empty string. And after that, we have is the header left part. So I'm going to say header left. It's going to take in a function and execute. So in our case, I'm going to initialize a pressable, import from React Native. Okay, so the first thing we have is the back icon. So let's go get the back icon. So here, let's search for back. Okay, so let us pretty much take this one from iron icons. So import the icon family, and then render component code, and then we're going to paste it over here. After that, we have the text which says change location, everything in caps. Save the file. Okay, so for the pressable, I'm going to say style of flex direction of row, and then align items of center, and let's say gap of 4. Okay, I think that's looking better. And for the style of the text, I'm going to give a font size of 15 and a letter spacing of 1. Okay, yeah, so the next thing is we're going to make use of a context. Okay, so that we can access the selected city in any part of our application. Okay, so for that reason I'm going to create my new context that is known as the, let's say, place context .js. So we're gonna start writing the code over here. So I'm gonna first import my create context method. Okay, I also need my use state from React. Okay, and after this let's start initializing the function. So I'm gonna say const place equals to create context. Now I'm going to define my place context. So I'm going to say const place context equals to, it's pretty much going to take in the children. Okay, and we're going to return something called as the provider, right? So I'm going to say return the place dot provider. So the provider is basically going to take in all of the children present, right? So we're going to initialize our state over here, that is the selected city and the set selected city, so that we can access the selected city at any point of our application, right? So I'm going to say const selected city comma set selected city equals to use state. Initially it's going to be let's say an empty string. Okay, so this provider is going to take in the value, right? So I'm going to say value, and I'm going to pass in these two values, that is selected city as well as set selected city, like this, and pretty much save the file. And let's export the required values. We need both place as well as place context. Save the file. So now let's try to access these values inside of our places screen, right? So to access that, we will be making use of the use context hook. Okay, so I'm gonna go over here. So I'm gonna say const destructure the values, that is selected city comma set selected city equals to use context, and let's import use context from React. Okay, and after that we're gonna write the context with which we created over here. Okay, so that is known as the place, right? So we're gonna say place, import that from the context file like this. So now for everything to work, you need to include the main place context inside of our app.js. Okay, let's come back over here. I'm going to include my place context, okay, and put my navigation inside of it. So save the file, and we're going to come to the places screen and save the file over here too. Okay, so we have access to the state. So the next step is to design all of these, right? So firstly, let's start with the search bar. That's going to come over here. I'm going to initialize my new view. Okay, so this is going to have the text input that's going to come from React Native. Import the text input like this, and pretty much this is going to have let's say a placeholder which says search your city. Okay, let's go to the places screen. Yeah, so after that we have is again we have the search icon, right? So let's get that out. So search icon from, let's say, feather. Import the icon family first, and I'm gonna copy this code to render the icon over here. Okay, so now let's give some styling for our view. So I'm gonna say style. Okay, firstly I'm gonna give some margin, that is external spacing of 10, and some internal spacing that is called as padding of 10. Okay, I'm gonna give a flex direction of row and align items of center, and I want the justify content to be space between. Okay, and we're gonna give it a border color as well. So I'm going to say border color of this color code. Okay, and a border width of, let's say, 2, and we also want to give it a border radius as well. So let's give the border radius, okay, let's say 10 for now. And yeah, feather is imported, text input is imported, so save the file. Yeah, so let's increase the border radius to be 20 or 30. Yeah, I think 30 is looking good. Okay, yeah, so the next part is, after the search bar is, we have another view which is gonna give us the selected location towards the right, if at all we have any location selected. Okay, so we're gonna say view over here. This view is gonna have pretty much two texts. So the first one is gonna say selected location, and the second one is gonna say pretty much selected city, and that value is of course present over here because of the context that we created. So I'm just going to render that value over here. So it's going to be empty at the initial state, not to worry. So save the file. So for the view, let's give the style. So I'm going to say a margin horizontal of 20 first, okay, and a flex direction of row, and align items of center, and again I'm going to give justify content of space between. Okay, there you go. So the next thing will be designing is pretty much all of the places. Okay, so let me get the code for the places data. Okay guys, I've just pasted the code for the places data. So pretty much it is an array of objects. Okay, so each object is going to have a unique ID, the name of the place, and pretty much the image for that particular place. Okay, so I'll be sending all of the data in the drive link, not to worry. Okay, so we'll be making use of this and then designing the places part. Okay, so for this I'll be making use of the flat list. So I'm going to say flat list, import that from React Native like this. Okay, so the flat list is going to take in the data attribute. So the data attribute in our case is going to be this places, right? So I'm going to say places. So the next thing it is going to have is the render item method, so that we can render the item. Okay, so pretty much in my case I'm going to render a pressable like this. I think pressable is, yeah, it's already imported. So inside the pressable, so the first thing I'm looking into is the image, right? So in this case I'll be making use of the image background. So I'm going to say image background. Let's import it from React Native. So pretty much it's going to take in the source URI. It's going to be item.image. So if you check out the data, so to access the image, it's going to be item.image, right? So let's give the style for the image background. So we're going to say width of 160, okay, and we're going to give it a height of, let's say, 100, and we're going to give it a border radius as well. So I'm going to say image style, so border radius of 8. So let's pretty much save the file so that we can start seeing the images, and I guess it should be in the form of a component. I mean, not in the form of a component. It should not be in enclosed in single enclosed tags, because we have to render something inside the image background. Okay, so just make that change and save the file. Yeah, so pretty much you're able to see all of the places coming, and we want it inside of 2 columns. Okay, so to make that change, I'm gonna say number of columns is going to be 2, and the next style is column wrapper style. Okay, so this is going to be justify content of space between. Okay, so I'm going to save the file. So let's go to the places screen, and there you go, that's working absolutely fine. Okay, so the next thing is we're going to give the style to the pressable, because it's almost touching towards the left part and the right part of the screen. So for the pressable, that is style, I'm going to give margin vertical of 10, and let's say margin horizontal of 20. Okay, yeah, I think that's looking better. and let's give it an opacity as well. I think let's give it to the image over here, opacity of 0.8. Yeah, I think that's looking better. Okay, so now inside the image we're gonna show the city. Okay, so I'm gonna initialize a view for that. So this view is gonna have a text attribute, and to render the city name, I think it's gonna be item.place. Okay, so I'm gonna say item.place. So save the file. So as you can see, we are able to see the text coming on the image, right? So we're gonna make that look properly, that is towards the bottom. So let's give the style for the view. So I'm gonna say style, flex of 1 and a bit of margin left, and I want the margin bottom to be 7, and justify content should be flex end, so it comes to the bottom part. Okay, so there you go. So for the text, let's give the styling. So I'm gonna say a color of, is it white? Yeah, it is white. So I'm gonna say a color of white, font size of 16, and a font weight of 700. So there you go, that's working fine. Okay, so if at all, if we press on any one of the locations, we need to show a tick mark button saying that it is selected, and we should come back to the first screen, that is the home screen. Okay, so let's implement that. So for that, I'm gonna apply a condition. Okay, so after the image background, I'm gonna say if in case our selected city equals to the item.city, then only I'm gonna show this particular view, whatever I'm writing now. Okay, so this is gonna have basically my icon. So let's get the icon first, that is the check mark icon. Okay, so I think, yeah, pretty much we can use this from and design, import it over here, and copy the render component code. So we're gonna paste it over here. So pretty much it's gonna be the same styles almost. So let's give that a flex of 1 and margin left of 7 and margin top of 7. This time I'm giving margin top because I want the icon to be top, right? From the top I want it to be at a space of 7, and after that we have is pretty much the aligned content. It's gonna be flex start. Okay, so save the file. So let's see if everything is working, right? So I'm gonna press on the first location. Okay, nothing is happening. Oh, okay, my bad, because we have given item.city. I think it should be item.place, right? Okay, so now after initializing this part, okay, we're gonna provide a onPress event on the pressable. So I'm gonna say onPress. Okay, so it's gonna take in a function, and I'm gonna say select city. I'm gonna provide in a parameter, it's gonna be select. Okay, so I'm gonna provide in the item dot place itself. Okay, so I'm gonna define the function over here, that is const select city. It is gonna take in the place that we selected. Okay, I'm gonna pretty much set the value. Okay, so as soon as it gets set, again this condition is gonna check over here, and pretty much we should be seeing the check mark icon. So let's say set selected city of the city, that's coming from the parameter. And after that, and after we do this, I'm gonna say navigation dot, I'm gonna use a set timeout over here. So let's say after 800 milliseconds, I'm gonna say navigation dot navigate to the home screen. Let's check out the name. So stack navigator, yeah, it is home screen. So yeah, let's pretty much save the file. So now if I press on the first city, and this is gonna run. So we are gonna pretty much set the city, and if it is selected, we're gonna show the icon, and after 800 milliseconds we are pretty much coming back to the home screen. So let's give that a try. So first look, first city, and there you go. So this is selected and we are coming back to the home screen. Okay, so let's make the icon to be, you know, in white color. So over here I'm gonna say white. Okay, save the file. Yeah, so pretty much it's gonna be the same thing. So let's, you know, try to access this piece of code inside our home screen. So import my use context as well as the place. So instead of Bangalore, I'm gonna say selected city. So there you go. Now it's completely dynamic. So based on whatever city we select, that is gonna come over here. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna look into is all of the movies that are gonna come inside of our home screen. Okay, so the first part is the header. So let's look into that. So let me create a new file called as the header.js file inside of our components folder. Okay, so components and then new file header.js rnfes to get the shorthand snippet. Save the file. So firstly, inside our home screen, to render all of the movies, we'll be making use of the flat list again. Okay, so I'm gonna say flat list, import from React Native. Okay, so now let me get the data for the movies. All right. Okay guys, I've just pasted the code for all of the movies. Okay, so this is pretty much the results from an API, that is the TMDB API. Whereas in the second video, we will just be making use of the Sanity backend. Okay, so for that reason, I've just made up all of this data into an array and then I've just pasted over here. Okay, so basically again for the flat list, the data is gonna be the data itself, and I'm gonna say render item. It's going to take in the item itself, and for each item inside of the data I'm going to render let's say a movie card. So again I'm going to create a new component inside my components folder and I'm going to say movie card dot js. Okay, rnfes to get the shorthand snippet. So pretty much over here I'm going to say movie card. So save the file. Yeah, as you can see, we have pretty much, let's say 10 to 15 films. Okay, so the first thing is we're gonna style out the header part, right? So the flat list is gonna have a prop known as the list header component. So we're gonna design that. Okay, so I'm gonna say list header component is gonna be the header. Let's import header from the components folder like this. Right, so pretty much save the file, and as you can see we are able to see the header. Okay, so let's start styling out the header. Okay, so the first thing inside the header is, let's say we have the image. So here we'll be making use of the image background again. So pretty much instead of this text, we have the image background. Okay, so you can pretty much, you know, copy the URI. Okay, or you can pretty much take the URI of any film and then paste it over there, and the style I've given is a height of 200 and a resize mode of contain. Okay, so let me import image background from React Native and save the file. So there you go, that's looking better. Okay, so now inside the image background we have a white color view. Okay, so for that I'm going to initialize a pressable, import that from React Native. And the first thing over here is gonna have is another view which is gonna have 3 texts inside of it. That is, let's say releasing in 1 day. Okay, so pretty much this this component is gonna be hard coded. Okay, so let's say the name and then the language. So now we are gonna style that out. So as you can see, we are able to see that on the image, but it is currently not being seen because it is currently black in color. So we're gonna give the style for the pressable. So I'm gonna say style. I'm gonna give it a height of 90. Okay, and then I wanted to be I wanted to have a background color of white, a bit of internal spacing, that is padding, and a slight border radius of 5. Okay, and a width of 90 percentage, and I want it to have a top value of 160. Okay, and margin left should be auto, and margin right should be auto as well, so that it comes to the center part. So yeah, pretty much. Let's save the file. Okay, and there you go, that part is working fine, right? So now we're gonna give it some margin bottom, because all of our movies are, you know, touching the header part. So over here I'm gonna say style, I'm gonna give a margin bottom of 50. Okay, I think let's keep it to be 55. Yeah, I think that's looking better. Okay, so now for all of the view, we're gonna give the style. Okay, I think this view is gonna have another view, because we also need to, you know, render the button. So I'm gonna say view over here, put in all of the texts. Okay, and we also have another pressable, that is the button, which says book. Okay, so for this view I'm going to give the style, that is flex direction of row, then align items of center, and justify content of space between. Okay, I think that's looking better. So now for the next part is we're going to style out the button, that is the book button. So I'm going to give a background color of this color code, that is FFC40C, and a bit of spacing, that is internal spacing, padding of 10, and a slight border radius of 6, and then a margin right to give some space towards the right, let's say 10. And yeah, let's pretty much save the file. Yep, I think that's looking better. Okay, so for the text now we're gonna give the style. So I'm gonna say style, a margin vertical of 4 or 5. Okay, and the font size is gonna be 16, and the font weight is gonna be 700. Okay, yeah, so the next part we're gonna look into is the styling of this one. So I'm gonna say style, font size of 15, color of gray, and font weight of 500. Okay, and for the first one, font size of 15, color is going to be black itself, and the font weight of 500. Okay, I think that looks better. Okay, so format it once and save the file. Okay, so the next part we'll be looking into is styling of the movie card, right? So pretty much inside of our home screen we have the item and the index. So I'm gonna pass some props, that is the item itself, to the movie card, that is each object for a particular movie, and pretty much the key is gonna be index. Okay, so again here we want the movies to be in 2 columns. So again I'm going to give the same piece of styling, that is number of columns is going to be 2, and the next thing is column wrapper style, justify content, it's going to be space between. Alright, so save the file, and there you go, that's looking better. So now let's come to the movie card, destructure the props, that is access the item, and start styling it out. Okay, so firstly I'll be making use of, let's say, a safe area view over here. So instead of the view I'm gonna say safe area view, and the first thing over here is gonna be a pressable, So import that from React Native as such. And for the pressable, I'm going to give the initial styling that it's going to have. So it's going to have, let's say, a flex of 1 and a border radius of 5, some margin horizontal 17, and some margin vertical of 10. Okay, and justify content should be center. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna give is we're gonna give the height and width. Okay, so before that, I'm gonna import my dimensions from React Native. So I'm gonna say height. So it's gonna be dimensions dot get of the window dot height divided by 2.5. I'm doing this because to provide the responsive designs like for all of the screens, right? So after this, similarly we have for the width. So this is gonna be the dimensions dot get of the window dot width minus 80. Okay, and then divided by 2. You can feel free to copy all of these codes for the styling part. And after the pressable, we have is the image tag that's gonna come. So import image from React Native, and I'm gonna pass in the style. Okay, so pretty much the width I'm gonna give it as 100%, and the height I want is to be 70%. Okay, and resize mode, it's gonna be contain. Let's provide the source for this. So source URI. Okay, so pretty much I think it's gonna be different for this. So let me just look into the data once. Okay, so if you check out the so we'll be using something called as poster path. Okay, so there is a different way of getting the URL for this. So let me just get the URL quickly. Okay guys, I've just pasted the code for the URI. Okay, so this is basically the URI code, and it's going to take in the item.poster path like this, and it's going to render. Okay, so you can feel free to copy this out, and let's save the file. Okay, we have some error regarding the dimensions, so let's look into it. Oh, okay, my bad, because over here we have written the width like over here itself, right? So let's remove that out, and I'm gonna write the width over here. So now it should pretty much work. So there you go, we are able to see all of our films coming according to the styles we have given, right? That is great, and some images are still loading. Okay, so the next thing we are gonna provide is we're gonna give this a border radius of 7. Okay, there you go, that's looking better. So after that we have is the title and the language, right? So I'm gonna write the view for that over here. So it's gonna be text. So I'm gonna say item dot title. So in case if the title length is more than, let's say 20 characters, I want to cut it out. So I'll be making use of the substring method. Okay, so I just want the first 20 characters of any particular film. Okay, so save the file, and there you go. I think that's looking better. So now let's give the styling for the text. So I'm going to say style, a bit of margin top of 6, and a font size of 15, and a font weight, let's say 400. Okay, yeah, I think that's looking better. So after that we have is the language thing. So I'm gonna say text. So it's gonna be item dot original language. Okay, so save the file, and there you go, that's working fine. I'm gonna provide a dot over here. So let's pretty much copy the same piece of styling for this over here. Okay, let's decrease it to be 2 or 4. Yeah, I think that should be in gray color. So I'm gonna provide the color as gray. All right, so the next thing is the button. I think we have already styled that out. So pretty much let's copy that from the header file. So here, yeah, let's pretty much copy this piece of code, come back to the movie card, and after the view, let's paste that out, and I'm gonna give it a specific width of 100. So let's import pressable. It's already imported, and yeah, we can save the file. So there you go, that's looking better. So let's give it some margin top of 10. Okay, so for the text, I'm gonna say style, text line of center. Okay, and the font size is gonna be 15, and the font weight is gonna be 500. Yep, I think that's looking better. Okay, so yeah, I think that part is done. So the next thing we'll be looking into is the filter part. Okay, so we'll be filtering based on the languages that we want. Okay, so firstly for that we'll be installing something called as the React Native models. So let's go to that part. So now let's open up the terminal and then add our dependency. Okay, so I'm just going to say yarn add React Native models. Okay, so this should pretty much install the package and then we can start working on it. Yeah, I think it has been installed. So the next step is we're gonna go into the home screen and we're gonna initialize the state for our model first. So I'm gonna say const model visible comma set modal visible equals to use state. Okay, so initially I'm gonna provide it a value of false. Okay, and after doing that I'm gonna initialize my bottom model at the bottom of the flat list. Okay, over here I'm gonna say bottom model, import that from React Native models like this. Okay, so after doing that we're gonna provide a bunch of options for the bottom model. So first one is we're gonna say on backdrop press. Okay, it's gonna take in a function and I'm gonna say set modal visible to be whatever is the opposite of modal visible. That is, if it is false, make it true, and if it's true, make it false. Okay, after that we have the swipe direction. So it's gonna take in a array of directions, that is up and then down. Okay, and after that we have is a swipe threshold. I'm gonna pass in the value of 200 for this, and the next thing we're interested in is the footer. So the footer is going to take in a new component that is known as the modal footer. That's going to come from the dependency itself. So pretty much import modal footer like this. Okay, so inside the modal footer I want a button, so I'm going to initialize my pressable. Okay, it's going to have a text which says apply filter or just apply, something like this. And let me give the styles for the pressable. Okay, I'm gonna say style. I want some padding right of 10. Okay, and some margin left of auto, margin right of auto just to center it, and some margin vertical as well. So I'm going to say margin vertical of 10 and a margin bottom of 30. Okay, I think that's it for this part. So the next thing we're going to look into is we're going to firstly try and open up the modal if it's working. Okay, so for that firstly we need access to our icon over here. Okay, property use state doesn't exist, so let's pretty much import use state. Okay, I guess we still have error. Yeah, and one more thing which I forgot was you need to include something called as the modal portal inside of our navigation. I mean inside of our main app.js. So I'm gonna say modal portal, okay, like this, and save the file. I guess we still have the error. Let's refresh the app and then start it out once again. And there you go, now that's working fine. So inside the home screen, okay, let me initialize my pressable, and which is going to contain the icon, right? So firstly pressable, okay, and let's go get the icon for that. So I'm going to say export.icons.fii. First link, let's search for filter, okay, so pretty much let's use this one. So import the icon family and paste it over here, and copy the render component code, and we're gonna paste it over here. Okay, so save the file. So the icon is actually not visible, I guess. Yeah, so let's give it some styling so it comes up on the screen. Okay, so I'm gonna say style, a position of absolute. Okay, I want a bottom value to be of 30. I wanted to have a background color of the color I gave it to the book button. So if you check out, let's say, the header or the movie card, you're gonna access this piece of color, okay, and I wanted to have a width of, let's say, 50, height of 50, and I wanted to have a border radius exactly half of the width and height to make it look circular, so 25. Okay, I think, yeah, let's give it a right value as well of 20. So let's pretty much save the file and check it out. Okay, so there you go, that's working absolutely fine. So for the pressable, I'm gonna say justify content of center and align items of center as well. Okay, that's good. I think let's increase the width and height, so 60, 60, and this is gonna be 30. Okay, yeah, I think that looks better. Okay, so if the user presses on this button, we need to open up our modal. Okay, so I'm gonna say on press, so it's gonna be set modal visible to whatever is the opposite of modal visible. So in the initial state, of course, it's gonna be false, so we're gonna make it to be true, and of course this is gonna get opened up, right? So save the file and let's continue with our modal options, right? So after the footer part, we have something called as the modal title. So this also is going to take in a component like structure, so modal title, and it's going to take in the title. So in my case, I'm going to say filters. Okay, so the next thing we have is the modal animation. So let's write that, and it's going to be new slide animation. Import that from React Native modals, and we're going to say slide from the bottom. Okay, and the next thing we have is the visible thing. So in my case, it's going to be modal visible. So if it is true, it's going to show up. If it's false, it's not going to show up. So initially we have made it as false, so it's not going to show up in the current state. Okay, so after that we have is the on hardware back press. That is, if you press on the back button, it's going to close off. So again, I'm going to say set modal visible, set modal visible to be opposite of modal visible. And the next thing we have is on touch outside. That is, if you touch outside of the modal, in that case also we are going to close this off. So I'm going to say set modal visible to be the opposite of modal visible. Yeah, so pretty much it should work. So save the file. Okay, so if I press on this one, and there you go, it's currently being applied. Okay, so now we are gonna provide some basic width and height to the modal. So let's close it off. So if I press on the outside part of it, it's gonna close off. Okay, so inside the bottom modal component, we have something called as the modal content, where all of our content goes. So I'm going to say modal content, import it from React Native modals like this. Okay, and let's give some basic width and height to the modal content. So I'm going to say style. So the width is going to be 100% and the height is going to be 280. Okay, so let's save the file, and pretty much you should be able to see that. Okay, there you go, that's being applied. So the next thing is we're going to start styling out our modal content. So firstly, I'm going to write a text attribute which says, languages. Save the file. So we're going to give some basic width and height to it, not width and height, some styling to it. So I'm just going to say padding vertical of 5, a font size of 15, and a font weight of 500. Okay, and a bit of margin top, let's say 10, and save the file. Yeah, I think that is looking better. So after that, let me just get the code for all of the filters. Okay guys, I've just pasted the code for the languages as well as genres, but we'll be only looking into the languages part because we do not have any kind of genres inside of our data, right? We only have something called as the original language, that is this one. Okay, so let's map over all of these and then let's design the modal content. So inside over here, after the text, I'm going to say pressable, or I'm just going to map over it. I'm just going to say languages to map for each item and index. Okay, I'm going to return a whole new pressable for each of the item present, and I'm going to access my text attribute, and I'm going to say item dot language. So if you check out the data for the languages, so to access the language is going to be language, and these are the languages that we have. Okay, and genres is this one. For that also we have given it as languages. Okay, you can pretty much change the value. So now let me save the file, and there you go, you have pretty much everything showing up. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna look into is we're gonna have one more piece of text. So this is for the genres. Okay, and again pretty much copy this piece of thing, and instead of languages I'm gonna say genres like this, small g, and save the file. Okay, so let's keep a pressable at the outside part so that we can give some style to it. So I'm going to say style, a flex direction of row, then align items of center. Okay, so for this pressable I'm going to give the style. So I'm going to say margin, that is external spacing of 10, and I want it to have a border color of this color code and a slight border width. Okay, and some padding vertical of 5 and a border radius as well of, let's say, 25, and save the file. Yeah, I think that is looking better. Okay, and I think we need to give it some padding horizontal as well, so let's do that. So I'm gonna say padding horizontal of 11. I think that's looking better. So for the outer part I'm gonna say a flex wrap of wrap. So it looks so everything comes up in the proper container, right? So there you go. So that's looking better. So as soon as the space completes over here, it's going to come to the next line and take up the space. So that's the way the flex wrap works. So the next thing we're going to do is pretty much copy the same piece of styling for the next pressable. So firstly, let's initialize a pressable over here. Okay, so put this inside, and we're gonna paste the styles for this like this. So the same thing I'm gonna give it for the genres as well. Okay, there you go, that's looking better. Okay, so now we're gonna access the state for the selected filter. Okay, so we're gonna say const selected filter comma set selected filter equals to use state of it's just going to be empty at the initial state. Okay, so when the user presses on any one of the filter, that is the languages, we are only going to look into the languages part for now. So I'm just going to say on press, or we're going to say set selected filter to be the item dot language. Okay, so our filter is stored inside of the state that is selected filter, right? So now we're going to apply the condition such that, so if we press on any one of the languages, that should have a different color. Okay, so we're going to apply the condition over here. So I'm going to say if my selected filter equals to the item dot language, then in that case I'm going to show a different design, else something else. Okay, so let's pretty much paste the same thing over here and here as well. Okay, so if at all we press on any one of the filter, then in that case I wanted to have a background color of orange, and I'm going to remove the border color as well as the border width. Okay, and if you press on that selected filter, I'm just going to say set selected filter to be again an empty thing. Okay, so I wanted to go back to the default state when I press on the selected one, and if we are pressing it for the first time, I wanted to have it should have this thing, and if it is again selected, it should go into this state, right? So pretty much save the file and let's see if it works exactly. So there you go, and let's make the change for the text. So if it is selected, I wanted to have a color of white for this. Okay, so I'm gonna say color of white and font size of 15 and save the file. Or let's pretty much remove that font size and let's give the font weight itself. Okay, so I'm going to say font weight of 500. Yeah, I think that's looking better. Okay, yeah, so the next thing we're going to look into is we're going to create a function to apply the filter. Okay, that's going to happen when we press on the apply button. So let's go to the modal footer. So we're going to initialize on press event on this. So I'm going to say on press. We're going to initialize a function that is apply filter of the selected filter. Okay, so let's pretty much define the function right at the top over here. So I'm going to say const apply filter equals to whatever the filter is. Okay, so yeah, we're going to define the function over here. So if I press on the apply button, the first thing we need to do is we need to close this modal, right? So for that reason, I'm going to say set modal visible to be false, correct? So after that, we'll be making use of something called as the switch cases. Okay, so I'm just going to say switch of filter. Okay, here we're going to define all of our cases, that is for all of these languages. So the first one is going to be case English. Okay, so inside the case English, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say firstly I need data for the sorted data, right? So for that also I'm going to initialize my state. So I'm going to say const sorted data comma set sorted data equals to use state, and firstly I'm going to import my, we already have the data, so I'm going to paste it over here so that it gets accessed. Okay, so I'm just going to pass in data over here. And for the flat list as well, instead of providing the data, we're going to provide the sorted data. Okay, so where we have the flat list over here, instead of data it's going to be sorted data. So yeah, that should work fine. Okay, yeah, no changes have been done. Great. Okay, so now if you press on any one of the filter and then apply, firstly we're gonna sort based on languages, and if you know that inside our data too we have something called as an original language, so we will be making use of the filter method and then filtering based on this original language. Okay, so let's come back to our function. So I'm gonna say set the sorted data to be sorted data dot filter for each and every item inside of the sorted data. I only want the language which I have selected as the filter. So it's gonna be item dot original language should be equal to the filter which I've selected. So the filter which I've selected is stored inside of the state, that is selected filter. So I'm simply gonna write selected filter as such like this. And after that, after this has completed, I'm just going to say break out from this case. That's it. Okay, so similarly we're going to do that for each of the languages that we have. So let's do that. So I'm going to say case Kannada, and the next case pretty much I'm just going to write in all of the languages that we have. Okay, so Hindi like this, so we have remaining 2. Okay, there you go. Let's format it once. Yeah, so that's it. So whenever you press on any one of the languages, that for that particular case, we're going to set the sorted data, that is by filtering out the languages which you want, that is based on the filter which you have selected. Okay, so if this works, again this is going to get re-rendered, that is the flat list, and it is going to take the sorted data that is based on whatever filter we have selected it. Okay, so hopefully everything should work. So let's give it a try. So I'm going to save the file. So firstly, I'm going to check out for English. I think for English we have just 3 films, so I think the first 3 should come. Okay, so let's check that out. So English and then apply. So there you go, we just have 3 films for English, right? So yeah, that's the way this thing works. Okay, so yeah, so if you want, you can pretty much add a reset button so that you can bring back the sorted data for the default state that we have, that is for all of the data. And I'm not going to do that part. You can pretty much add a basic reset button and implement that part. Okay, so the next thing we'll be looking into is we're going to create a new screen, that is our movie screen, so that if you press on any one of the button, that is a book button, you'll be navigated to the next screen. Okay, so firstly I'm going to create my new screen, that is the movie screen.js, and then I'm going to say rnfes to get the shorthand snippet. Okay, so here we're going to implement the dates part as well as the set of theaters for that particular location. Okay, so let's look into that. So first let's look into the dates part of it. Okay, so we'll be designing that first, and before we do that we need to handle the navigation, that is from the book button to the movie screen. Okay, so we have already created the movie screen. Let's initialize this inside of our stack navigator first. So over here I'm gonna say home stack.screen. So the name is gonna be let's say a movie, and component is going to be movie screen, and over here we need the header. Okay, so let's import the movie screen from the screens folder like this and save the file. Okay, so let's now come back to our home screen, I mean the movie card, and where we have our book button over here. I'm going to say on press. It's going to take in a function. I'm going to say navigation. Okay, I think navigation is not initialized, so I'm going to say const navigation equals to use navigation. Import that from a React navigation / native. Okay, so I'm just going to say navigation.navigate to the name of the screen. So inside the stack navigator, the name of the screen we gave was movie, so I'm going to say movie, and I'm going to pass in one piece of information, that is the title. So I'm going to say title is going to be item.title. So let's check if that's the correct one, item.title. So save the file and let's give it a try. Okay, so let's press on the book button, and there you go, we are coming into the movie screen. So the first thing is we need to handle the title inside the movie screen. So let's come over here. Let's pretty much copy the use layout effect from any one of these. Okay, so I've just pasted the use layout effect. Okay, so pretty much we're just going to make some changes over here. So firstly, let's initialize a navigation, that is const navigation equals to use navigation, and we're just interested in the header title and all of that. Let's remove the header right and the header left as well. So the header title is pretty much gonna be whatever is there inside of our root params.title. So firstly, let's initialize our root param. So const root equals to use route. Okay, so this is gonna be root.params.title. Okay, so save the file. Use layout effect doesn't exist, so let's import use layout effect from React, and now let's give it a try. So the first one, and there you go, that's looking better. So the movie's name, and the starting part inside the screen is the dates. Okay, so let's initialize that. So firstly, I'm gonna initialize my state for the dates. So I'm gonna say const selected date comma set selected date equals to use state. Okay, initially I'm just gonna pass nothing. Okay, so now inside the movie screen, the first thing is I'm gonna initialize my scroll view, import from React Native, and I'm gonna create my component. Okay, use state, let's import use state also. Save the file. Okay, so firstly, yeah, let's create a new component that is known as the calendar component. You can pretty much name whatever you want, .js, rnfes to get the shorthand snippet. So inside my scroll view, I'm going to import my calendar component that I created from the components folder like this, and save the file. So as you can see that calendar on the screen. That's good. And to the calendar component, I'm going to pass some props. Okay, that is the selected date. Okay, so I'm going to say selected, it's going to be selected date, and then on select date, it's going to be set selected date. Okay, like this. Save the file. So inside the calendar component, let's pretty much destructure the values, that is selected and the on select date. Okay, so yeah, that's good. So the next thing is we're gonna initialize a dependency that is called as moment. So let's go do that. So I'm gonna say yarn add moment. Okay, so this should pretty much install the dependencies required to design the calendar part. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to initialize a function over here, which is going to say const get dates. Okay, so I'm going to initialize my dates over here, dates array. So I'm going to say const, so before the function I'm going to initialize dates comma set dates equals to use state, and initially it's going to be an empty array. We're going to map over the dates and then initialize a new component for each date. Okay, so let's import use state from React. Okay, so I'm going to say const my dates equals to an empty array. So let's say I just want the first 5 current dates starting from today. Okay, so I'm going to say for let I equals to 0, I is less than 5. So since I want 5 dates, I'm gonna go till 5. If you want 10 dates, you can go till 10. Okay, so I'm gonna say I plus plus. So I'm gonna say const date equals to, so to get the current date from today, it's gonna be moment, import moment from moment, and we're gonna say moment dot add whatever is the I value, and it's gonna be the days. So if you check out the documentation, you would pretty much understand how exactly it's working. Okay, so after executing the for loop, I'm pretty much gonna set the dates, right? So it's gonna be set dates to be whatever is present inside of my dates. So even before doing that, I'm gonna say my dates dot push of the date. Okay, so inside my dates, pretty much 5 values should be present, and I'm gonna set that to be inside of this state. So I'm gonna say set dates to be my dates. So save the file. Okay, so I'm going to execute this function inside of a use effect. So I'm going to say use effect. Okay, so I just want the use effect to run only once, so I'm just providing an empty dependency array, and let's import use effect from React over here. Okay, and I'm going to call the function that is get dates, like this. Okay, so let's pretty much console.log the dates, whatever it is present. So I'm going to say console.log of the dates. Okay, so save the file, and there you go. So these are our 5 dates. Okay, 1 2 3 4 5. So we need to convert this, basically we need to format it to the way we want, that is the day as well as the day number. Okay, so we'll do that. So firstly, inside our calendar.js file, we are going to make use of a scroll view. Okay, import that from React Native. Let's remove the text, and inside the scroll view, whatever dates we have, we're going to map through it, right? So we pretty much have 5 dates, so we're going to map through it. I'm going to say dates dot map. So for each and every date and index, pretty much I'm going to return a whole new component. Okay, so for that I'm going to initialize a component. So components folder, new file, I'm going to say date.js, rnfes to get the shorthand snippet. Okay, so pretty much I'm going to import my date component over here. So date, let's import it from the components folder like this. And for the date component, I'm going to pass in the date itself, that is this particular value for each of the item that is present. So date is going to be date, the key is going to be index. Okay, we have the selected, it is going to be selected, it's coming from the props. And the next one we have is on select date, that also is coming from the props, so we're going to say on select date again. So save the file. So pretty much if I save the file, you should be seeing 5 times date popping on the screen. So let's do that. So there you go, 5 times. So now let's come into the date.js file, and we're going to format it. So before that, let's destructure the values. One is the date we have, and one is the selected, and one is the on select date. Okay, so we're going to format the date according to the way we want to, right? So firstly, I'm going to initialize my day. So const day equals to moment, import moment from moment, and whatever date we have that we got, that is this particular value for each type, I'm going to access that. So moment of date dot format. So the way I want is to be DDD. Okay, so pretty much let's console.log the day. Okay, and let's console.log of day, and let's remove this console.log, that's not required. Save the file. Let's pretty much save the file over here, and there you go. Okay, so today is a Sunday and tomorrow is Monday, so Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. So we have formatted this one to be like this. Okay, so there you go. So the next thing after that we have is the const, let's say day number. So the day number is going to be again moment of access the date that is coming from the props and formatted according to your structure. So format, I'm going to pass in the capital D to get the day number. So save the file. Okay, so I'm gonna console.log the day number as well. So save the file. So there you go. So today is a Sunday. Okay, and the date is 7th. So tomorrow is a Monday and date is 8th. So similarly we have for the next 3 days. So total is 5 days. You can pretty much get it for 10 days as well. Just run the loop for 10 times. That's it. Okay, so after that, now to check if it is selected or not, I'm gonna initialize one more constant variable that is known as the full date. So it's gonna be moment of date. Okay, we're gonna format it based on this value, that is year, month, and then day. Okay, so this is the format we're going to use and we're going to save the file. Okay, so now inside the return block, I'm going to make use of a pressable like this. Okay, pressable over here as well. Save the file. So the first thing inside this is we're gonna have two fields. So this is gonna be the day, and again one more text field. This is gonna be the day number. So we're gonna save the file. Okay, and for the scroll view inside the calendar, I'm gonna give a prop known as horizontal because we want it to look horizontal. So horizontal and show. Save the file. Yeah, that's looking better. And if you scroll over here, you can see that okay, that's not seen. That's good. So let's remove that, not required. So inside the date, I'm gonna give the style for the pressable. Okay, so pretty much let's give it in the form of an array. It's gonna be styles dot, let's say, container. Okay, if it is selected, we're gonna give it a different background color. Okay, so firstly for the container, I'm gonna define it over here. So container, so it's gonna have a background color of this color code, that is E0, 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 and it's gonna have a border radius of 10 and a border color with this color code, and some internal spacing we're gonna give, that is padding of 10. And I wanted to have a specific width and height, so I'm gonna give a width of 70 and a height of 70. Okay, and I'm gonna give a margin horizontal of 6 because it's almost touching each other. Okay, so let's pretty much save the file and let's give a bit of margin vertical of 10. Save the file. So there you go. I think that's looking better. So let's put everything to the center by justify content of center and then align items of center. Okay, I think that's looking better. Okay, so after the text, I wanted to give a specific height, a space. So I'm gonna say view, I'm gonna say style, I wanted to have a height of 10. Okay, so that acts as a separator. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look into is, so we're going to say if we're going to check the condition if are selected, or before that, if we press on the pressable, that is on any one of the date, we're going to set it, right? So we're going to say on press, it's going to take in a function. Okay, we're going to say on a select date, that is over here, it's coming from the props, it's going to be basically the full date. Okay, so pretty much formatted over here. If you want, you can even console.log the full date and check out what is the value, right? So let's remove the console.logs for the day and the day number. Save the file. So this is the date. Okay. So these are the dates. So this is for today's, tomorrow's, day after tomorrow's, and so on. So we're gonna check the condition over here. That is, if our selected equals to the full date, like this, then in that case, okay, I think we have some error. I've written it in the wrong way. It should come after the array, right? So over here I'm going to write the condition that if it is selected, okay, my bad, just a minute. So if the selected equals to the full date, then in that case we're going to give it a background color of yellow. So I'm going to say background color is going to be yellow. Okay, so let's look into where exactly we are erroring out, right? So styles.container, that is good. And okay, so you can pretty much copy this piece of line. That is, if it is selected equals to the full date, then we wanted to have a background color of this. It's a yellow color background. Okay, so save the file. Okay, so after that, I think we need to even make changes for the text as well. So I'm going to say style. So again, an array of styles. So I'm going to say styles dot day, and if our pretty much I'm going to copy the same thing. Okay, so if the selected equals to full date, that means I'm going to give it a different color. So color is going to be of white. Okay, same thing for the day number as well over here. Okay, let's copy that correctly. So this is gonna be number, again color of white. Okay, so for the day, let's define the style. It's gonna have a font size of 14 and a font weight of 400 or 500, and the same thing is gonna for the number. It's gonna have the same piece of styling, so font size of 14 and a font weight of 500. Okay, so I also wanted to have a font weight of 500 if it is selected, along with the color of white. Okay, so you can pretty much check out the codes for the styling once more. Okay, save the file. So now let's say I press on the first date, that is for today. So there you go, that is selected. But what I want is, whenever I come to the screen, that is today's date should be automatically selected. Okay, so to do that, I'm gonna make changes inside my movie screen. Okay, so where we have the selected date. Okay, so I'm gonna pass in an initial value for the selected date. That's gonna be today's date, right? So for that, I'm gonna say const today equals to import moment dot format. The format is gonna be year, month, and day. I think the same thing we have given it inside our dates, the same thing. Okay, so pretty much by default today is selected, right? So if you come back over here and if you go to any one of the movie, by default today is selected. So if it is selected, this style is gonna get applied. So it's gonna have a background color of yellow, and it's gonna have a white color over here as well, and the remaining things is gonna have the default background color of this thing. Okay, and pretty much this styles. So let's check it out. So there you go. So currently this is selected. Okay, so you can pretty much check it out. Okay, so that's the way this thing works. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look into is we're going to show all of the theaters for a particular location that the user is selected, right? So firstly, let's get the theaters array. Okay guys, I've just pasted the code for the malls. Okay, so it's pretty much an array of objects. So if you check out the code, so for each object, we have a place, And for each place we have a set of malls that is present again inside of an array that is known as galeria. Okay, so we have a unique ID, the place name, and the galeria for that particular place. And for each galeria array we have a set of mall with along with the show times. Okay, so you can pretty much check out the structure of the data. So this is for the first city. Okay, so if I check out the second object, this is for the second city. Again, we have the galeria for that particular city, that is a list of malls for that particular city, right? So pretty much we have, let's say, 7 or 8 cities along with its malls. So based on the location the user has selected, we're gonna show the malls along with its show times. Okay, so pretty much we are gonna map over it after the scroll view. So firstly, let's select our location. Okay, so I'm going to select the first one, and I'm also going to access the location over here. So if you go to the home screen, you can pretty much access this piece of code, that is with the help of context that we have created, and paste it over here. So let's import the use context, and let's import the place as well, like this. Okay, so now I'm gonna write the condition over here. So first I'm gonna say malls. So firstly, we are only interested in those malls, that is for the location which we have selected. So I have selected this Bangalore location, right? So I'm only interested in this particular array, right? So I don't want the rest of these. Okay, so to remove that, I'll be making use of the filter method. So I'm gonna say malls dot filter for each and every item inside the malls array. I only want the malls whose place is equal to the selected place. Okay, let's check out the spelling. That is selected city. So it's gonna be selected city, like this. And after we have come over here, now we just have this particular array, this particular object, right? So again, we have to go into the galeria. Okay, so to do that, I'm gonna say dot map for each and every item. Okay, again I'm gonna say, not over here, no, it was that itself, my bad. So it has to be item dot galeria. Again, since galeria is an array, as you can see, we're gonna map over it and render the names. That's it. Okay, so I'm gonna say item dot galeria dot map for each and every multiplex and index. I'm gonna render, let's say, a pressable for now. Import that from React Native. Okay, so again, let's look into it. So firstly, I'm just mapping over the malls, and I only want the galeria of the selected city, right? So I'm applying this condition, that is item dot place should be equal to the selected city. Okay, we have the place over here, right? As you can see, item dot place. So I'm just filtering based on that condition, and after that we get the required galeria. So for that, again, I'm mapping over here, that is dot map for every item, and item dot galeria dot map, I'm just pretty much rendering a pressable. This is gonna have a text field, so it's gonna be multiplex dot name. Okay, so to access the name of the mall, it's gonna be multiplex dot name, because we have mapped over the galeria array, right? So pretty much, let's save the file. Let's select the location once. Okay, I'm not sure why it is not showing it over here, right? So as you can see, we are able to see all of the malls for that particular location, right? So let's format it once and save the file. Okay, so we're gonna give some style for the pressable. So I'm gonna say style, it's gonna be margin horizontal of 20 and a margin vertical of 10. Okay, fine. So let's, for the calendar part, it's almost touching towards the left part. So I'm going to give the style for the scroll view. I'm gonna say content container style, and I'm gonna give a bit of margin left to it of, let's say, 10. Okay, yeah, I think that's looking better. So for the text, I'm gonna give style a font size of 15 and a font weight of bold. Okay, or let's keep it to be 500. Yeah, I think that's looking better. Okay, so now after that, what we're gonna do is, firstly, if we press on any one of the mall, below that we need to show all of the show times for that particular mall, right? So firstly, let's access the state. Let's initialize the state for the malls. So I'm gonna say const mall comma set mall equals to use state, and initially I'm going to provide an empty array, and when we press on the mall, so that is for the pressable, I'm going to initialize on press event on it. I'm pretty much going to set the mall, right? So I'm going to say set mall to be its name. So it's to access the name is going to be multiplex dot name. Okay, so save the file. So below the text, I'm going to write the condition, that is if my mall dot includes the multiplex dot name. In that case, we have pressed on that mall. That means we need to show the set of show times, right? Else we're just gonna show null. Okay, so if it includes the mall name, then in that case I'm going to initialize my flat list. Okay, import that from React Native, and let's write the data for it. So in case it includes, then in that case we are pretty much going to show the show times, right? So to access the show times, it's going to be multiplex dot show times. Okay, so I'm just going to say multiplex dot show times, and the next thing is we're going to write the render item method. So this is pretty much going to take in the item. Okay, and over here we're going to return, let's say, a pressable, which is going to have a text attribute containing the show time. Okay, so to access the show time, we have the item rendered, right? So it's going to be item dot, just the item, right? Because there is no value over here. So it's pretty much just going to be item, hopefully, right? So save the file. So let's say if I press on the first mall, it should be showing all of the show times for that particular mall, right? So let's give it a try. So there you go. So all of the items are present over there, but I want it to be in 3 columns, right? So over here, I'm going to say number of columns is going to be 3. Let's check if the spelling is right. I'm not sure. So if you check out our home screen where we have the flat list over here, yeah, num columns. Okay, so here I'm gonna say 3. You can pretty much check out the code. So let me save the file. So if I press over here, there you go. Now there are in 3 columns, right? So for the pressable, I'm going to give the style. So I'm going to give it a border color of green, border width of 0.7, and some internal spacing, that is a padding of 5, a specific width, and we also need to give it a bit of border radius of 3 and some external spacing, that is margin of 8. So let me save the file, and there you go. I think that's looking better. Let's decrease the width to be 70. Yeah, 70 looks good. So for the text, I'm gonna give the style. So firstly, I'm gonna say a text align of center, like this. Okay, and here also I want the color to be green, so I'm gonna say color green, and I'm gonna give it a font size of 15 and a font weight of 500. Okay, so now I think we need to increase the width to be 80. Yep, I think that's looking better. And border radius, let's increase it to be 6. Okay, I think 6 looks good, or 5. Yeah, 5 is looking better. Okay, so I think that's it. So if you check on any other mall, it's gonna show for that particular mall all of the show times. Okay, so that's it about the movie screen. So now if at all I press on any one of the mall, I mean any one of the show time for that particular mall, we need to navigate to the theater screen where we show all of the seats for that particular theater, right? So for that, firstly I'm going to create my theater screen inside my screens folder as such, like this. So theater screen.js rnfes, save the file. So here we'll be designing our theater screen. Okay, so first we'll be making use of the dummy data, that is with all of the seats and the rows, right? So even before that, we're going to send some information from the movie screen to the theater screen. Okay, so let's do that part. Okay, so before getting into the theater screen, firstly we had a problem that we encountered earlier, that is the location which we selected was not showing up at the header part inside the home screen. So let's look into that. Okay, so inside the home screen we have the use effect initialized as well as the use layout effect initialized. And as I told, the syntax of use layout effect is similar to use effect, and it is only going to run once because we have provided a empty dependency array. So the same thing goes with the use effect as well, but we also want it to run when we have selected a different city, right? So I'm going to provide a dependency inside the dependency array over here. That's going to be selected city. So this use layout effect is going to run even when the selected city is selected, and as well as for the first time also is going to run, right? So the same thing is going to happen for the animation part as well. So I'm going to pass selected city and save the file. So as you can see, now it's showing up correctly. So now if I select a different city, let's say this one, and there you go, that's working fine. Okay, so that was the problem that we had faced. So the next thing we'll be looking into is the theater screen, right? So if at all when we press on any one of the show time, we're going to pass in some of the information and then we navigate to the theater screen. So the first step is to include our theater screen over here inside our stack navigator. So I'm going to say home screen.stack, I mean home stack.screen. The name is going to be theater. Okay, so component is going to be theater screen and import it like this over here. So save the file. Let's come back to the movie screen, and over here on press of any one of the show time, I'm going to initialize the on press event on this. So I'm pretty much going to say navigation dot navigate to the name of the screen. That's going to be theater in our case, and I'm going to pass in a bunch of information, that is the name, selected date, the mall, it's going to be mall, and we also need access to the show time. So the show time is going to be the item itself, whatever we have rendered, right? So I'm going to say item. So pretty much save the file and let's give it a try. So I'm going to press on the first one, and there you go, we are coming to the theater screen. So now let's start designing our theater screen. So the first thing is the header part, that is this one. It's going to contain the mall name as well as the back button. Okay, so I'm going to copy the use layout effect from any one of the screen, let's say this one itself. Okay, I'm going to paste it over here. Firstly initialize my navigation like this, and I'm going to also initialize my route params. So I'm going to say const route equals to use route like this. Okay, so I don't want the header title, so I'm just going to pass in an empty string, right? I want something called as a header left, so I'm going to say header left. It's going to take in a function, and I'm going to return a pressable. Okay, so pretty much I'm going to take in the back icon. So I think we already have that inside the movie screen. Okay, or I don't think we have over here, or I think we have it inside our places screen. Let's check that out. Yeah, we have this line icon. So import that into the theater screen, and we're gonna, okay, I think I made a mistake. Firstly, import the line icons. Okay, and this one we're gonna use it over here. Okay, and after this we have a text attribute which is gonna say the root.params.mol, whichever mol we have selected. So let's import use layout effect as well, and yeah, let's save the file. Okay, there you go, we are getting the correct mol. So now we're gonna give some style to the pressable. So I'm gonna say a flex direction of row. Okay, align items of center and justify content. Okay, I don't think we need that, and a gap of 4. Okay, I think that's looking better. So if at all we press on the iron icons, that is the back icon, I'm gonna say navigation dot go back, right? So save the file. So now let's start designing the theater screen, that is the seats part of it. So firstly I'm gonna design these two parts, that is these two pieces of texts. So let's do that. So this one is gonna say screen this way. So I'm gonna give the style for this. So it's gonna be, I'm gonna give it a spacing on the top, so margin top of 10, and a text align of center, and let's say font size of 15. Okay, after that we're gonna show the ticket price. I'm gonna say classic, and I'm gonna pass in the price, that is 240. Okay, so I'm gonna copy the same piece of styling for this as well, and I'm gonna give it a color of gray like this. Okay, so the next thing we'll be looking into is showing the seats up, right? So let me get the data for the seats array. Okay guys, I've just pasted the code for the rows. Okay, so pretty much it is stored inside of a use state, right? So firstly let's import that out. So just for testing purposes, I'm just making use of 2 rows. Okay, that is 2 objects. So inside the first object we have the row, that is row A, and for the row A we have the seats array corresponding to it. So inside the seats array we have pretty much the seats number, seat and the booking status for each seat, that is going to be false at the default state. And similarly okay guys, I've just pasted the code for the rows. Okay, so pretty much it is stored inside of the state, right? So I'm using just 2 rows for testing purposes. Okay, that is 2 objects as of now. So inside the first object we have row A. Okay, and for row A we have the corresponding seats. Okay, so seats is again an array of objects which is going to contain the seat number and the booking status, that is going to be false at the default state for all of the seats, right? And similarly for the second object we have row B, and for row B we have the corresponding seats and the seats number again in the array of objects, and we have the booking status for each seat, and it's going to be false currently. Okay, so we're going to make use of this data and then render the seats. So I'm going to initialize a function over here. So I'm going to say render the seats like this. So let's define this piece of function at the top over here. So I'm going to say const render seats equals to a basic arrow function. Okay, so since I'm using an explicit return, I need to make use of the return statement to show something on the UI, right? So I'm going to say return. So firstly I'm going to access the rows that is present inside of state. I'm going to map over it. I'm going to access the row as well as the row index. Okay, so I'm going to return one more piece of code that's going to be a view. Okay, so this is the outer view. This is going to contain 2 things, that is the row as well as the seats. Okay, so it's going to contain the row. For the corresponding row we have the seats, and again similarly it's going to be the second row, and for the corresponding second row we have the seats showing up. Okay, so for this view, I'm going to write in one more view. So this it's going to take in a text basically. So now we're going to return the row name. So to access the row name, it's going to be row.row, right? So over here, I'm going to say row.row. Save the file. So as you can see, we have pretty much two things coming up, that is row A and row B. So over here, I'm going to give the key. It's going to be row index. Okay, so pretty much save the file. So after the view, I'm going to initialize my scroll view, which is going to contain the seat numbers. So I'm going to say scroll view, import it from React Native. Okay, so scroll view, I'm going to give the style that is horizontal, and I'm going to say show horizontal scroll indicator, and I'm going to set it to be false. Okay, so inside the scroll view, I'm going to initialize my one more view over here. So I'm going to say view. So here I'm going to map over the seats. Okay, so to access the row, we did row.row, right? So to access the seats, we're going to do row.seats, and since seats is an array, we can map over it, right? So I'm going to say row, access the seats, and then we're going to say map for each seat and the seat index, right? I'm going to return something. In my case, I'm going to return a pressable. Okay, so import pressable from React Native, and inside this pressable, I'm going to have a text attribute, which is pretty much going to say, which is going to show us the seat number, right? So to access the seat number, it's going to be seat.seat, because over here we have the seat. So I'm going to say seat.seat. Okay, so as you can see, we have the row A, and for row A, we have all of the seats 1 to 7, and then we have row B, and for the row B, we have seats 1 to 7. Okay, so now let's look into the styling part of it. So the first thing is gonna go over here for the outer container. So I'm gonna say style. So I'm gonna say flex direction of row, and then align items of center, and some margin bottom of 10. Okay, so there you go. Now that's looking correctly. So now for the second one, that is this view, I'm gonna say style. Okay, I wanted to have a specific width of 40, and I'm gonna give it a margin right of 10 because the seat is almost touching the row, as you can see. So I'm gonna say margin right of 10. Okay, there you go, that's looking better. So the next thing we're gonna look into is the styling of the seats, right? Or before that, let's give the style for the view. Since it's in a column fashion, I'm gonna say flex direction of row, align items of center. Okay, so there you go, that's looking better. So now for each of the seats, I'm gonna give the style. So this is gonna have a styles of array. I'm gonna say styles.seat. Okay, so I'm gonna define that over here. So seat, it's pretty much gonna have a width of 40 and a height of 40, and it's gonna have align items of center, justify content of center, and it's gonna have a margin, that is external spacing of 5, and a background color of white, and a bit of border width of 1, and then we have the border radius of 5, and we are gonna give the border color of this color code. Okay, so let me just save the file. So as you can see, that's looking better. Okay, and you can scroll through it as well. So the next thing we're gonna look into is, okay, but over here I think the entire thing is white. That's the reason you're seeing it this way. Okay, so yeah, the next thing we're gonna look into is we're gonna style this part out. So I'm gonna say style. I'm gonna give it a font size of 16 and a font weight of bold. Okay, and the next thing is, I think it's gonna have some space towards the left, so I'm gonna give that as well. For the text, I'm gonna say margin left of 10. Okay, or 15. Yeah, 15 is looking good. And let's decrease the width to be 30. Yeah, I think that's looking better. So for the view, let's also give some margin top of, let's say, 15. I mean, not margin start, margin top. Okay, I think that is not looking good. Okay, so we're gonna give it, let's say, to the text itself, that is for the classic text, I'm gonna give it a margin bottom. Yeah, I think that's looking better. Okay, so yeah, I think that's it about the rendering of the seats part. So if you want more number of seats, you can pretty much, you know, copy this object a couple of times. Okay, and paste it like this, and pretty much just change the name. Everything is going to be the same. So C and then D. So there you go. Okay, so that's the way this thing works. Okay, so the next thing is, I think let's change the background color to be this one, right? So I'm going to give it a background color of white for the entire view. That is over here for this one. So style, flex of 1, and a background color of white. Okay, yeah, that's looking okay, not bad. So I think let's change the border color once to be C0 C0 C0. Yeah, I think that's looking better. Okay, so the next thing we'll be looking into is we'll be styling out this part, and after that we'll be handling the seat press. Okay, so if at all we press on any one of the seats, we need to show a different background color, and we need to show at the bottom that that particular seat is selected. Okay, so first let's style out this part, that is the selected, vacant, and occupied thing, right? So just beneath this function, I'm going to put up my design, that is this part. Okay, so for that I'm going to initialize my view. Okay, so let's give the style for the view. So firstly, let's give that grayish background color. So that's going to be this color code, and I'm going to give it some internal spacing, that is padding of 10, and save the file. Okay, and also let's give it some margin top of 25. Okay, that's better. So now inside of these views, I'm gonna pretty much paste my icons like this. Okay, so this is the first view, and it's gonna contain the icon, and it's gonna contain the text which says selected. Okay, so the next step is let's import the font awesome icons from over here. Okay, so let me save the file. Okay, that's looking better. So the next thing is pretty much we're gonna paste this a couple of times like this. Okay, and we're gonna make the changes for the colors as well. So the second one is gonna be white, and the third one pretty much gray. So over here I'm gonna say white, and this is gonna be gray. Okay, yeah, that's looking better. So now let's give the style for the outer view. So we're gonna give a flex direction of row and align items of center. Okay, we have given margin top, and padding also is given. So let's format it once and save the file, and let's give it some, you know, padding left to it. Let's say 80. Okay, and for this we're gonna give style, or we can pretty much give the gap over here itself, I guess. Let's say gap of 20. Yeah, that works. 30. Okay, yep, I think that's looking better. Okay, so the next thing is we're gonna change the text values. So if it is white, it's gonna be vacant, and if it's in gray color, it's gonna be booked. Okay, nice. So the next thing we'll be looking into is we're gonna handle the seat press, right? So if at all you press on any one of the seat, then it should change to this yellow color, and again if you press on the selected seat, it should turn back to the white color, right? So we're going to implement that now. So let's initialize a on press function on the touchable opacity, or on the pressable inside the render seats method that is over here. Okay, so here I'm going to initialize my on press event on the pressable, that is on the seat. So I'm going to say on press. Okay, I'm going to initialize a function that is called as handle seat press, and to this function I'm going to pass in two things, that is the row and the seat number, right? So the row is present over here, that is row.row. So I'm going to pass in row.row, and to access the seat it's going to be seat.seat. Okay, there you go. So let's define this function at the top over here. So I'm going to say const handle seat press equals to, it's going to take in two values, that is two properties, row and seat. Okay, so first let's try and console.log whatever values is getting is correct or not, right? So I'm going to say console.log row is going to be row, and console.log seat is going to be seat. Okay, so let's save the file, and I'm going to press on the first one, that is this seat. So there you go. So row is A, seat is 1. So let's press on let's say this one. So row is B, seat is 4. Okay, so that thing we are getting correctly. So now let's let's initialize the states for our seats. Okay, so I'm going to do that over here. So I'm going to say const selected seats comma set selected seats equals to use state. So there can be many seats that are going to get selected, so I'm going to provide an empty array at the initial state. Okay, so firstly we're going to check inside the function that if at all the seat is selected or not, right? So to check that condition, I'm going to write const is selected. Okay, firstly to check we're going to make use of this state, because that is where all of our seats are stored, right? So I'm going to say const is selected equals to selected seats dot sum. There is the sum method in JavaScript, or else you can even make use of the find method. I think both of them should work. Okay, I'm going to access the selected seat. Okay, here I'm going to apply the condition that if the selected seat dot row equals to this row, that is whatever we press on, and the selected seat dot seat equals to this seat that we have chosen. If that's the case, then that means our seat is already selected, right? So if at all the seat is already selected, and if you again press on it, then that means we should remove that from the selected seats array, right? So we're going to say if you're going to write the condition, that is if it is selected, then what we should do, we should remove that seat from the seats array. So we're going to say set selected seats. Okay, so this is basically the modifier that is coming from the use state. So I'm going to say set selected seats, and over here pretty much I'm going to access whatever is the previous state. Okay, so I'm just pretty much going to say previous state dot filter. I'll be making use of the filter method to remove the selected seat. Okay, so for that reason I'm going to say previous state dot filter. So here I'm going to access the selected seat, and I'm going to write my condition, that is selected seat. I think I made a bracket error, just a minute. Yeah, so here I'm going to say the selected seat dot row should not be equal to the row, or the selected seat dot seat should not be equal to this seat that we have pressed on. Okay, so by doing this we are just filtering out that particular seat. from the selected seats array, right? This one. Okay, so else if at all the seed is not selected for the first time, then that means we're gonna push that seeds into this selected seeds array, right? So to do that, I'm gonna write the else condition. If at all our seed is not selected, and if we want to select any kind of seed, so I'm gonna say else set selected seeds. Again, I'm gonna access the previous state. Okay, so pretty much I'm gonna spread the value of previous state. I want to include that like this, and after that I want to push in my row and then seed. That's it. Okay, so that's the way the handle seed press works, right? So pretty much let's save the file, and let's try and console.log our selected seeds value. So I'm going to say console.log selected seeds. Okay, so as you can see, initially it is an empty array because we do not have any seeds selected. So let's say if I press on the first one, that is row A and seat number 1, so inside a function, this is going to get triggered off. That is, where did that go? Yeah, this one. So we're going to pass row.row, that is A, and seat.seat, that is 1. So pretty much over here we get A and 1. Okay, same thing in the console. So firstly we check, that is selected seeds dot, with the help of some method, we check if the selected seeds dot row equals to the row, but there is nothing present inside of selected seeds. So we pretty much come out of this, and over here the value of false is initialized. So if it is false, it automatically comes into the else condition. So we pretty much execute this piece of code. Okay, so here, oh, I think I've made a mistake. So this is gonna be set selected seeds. Okay, here we are setting the seeds for the first time, so include the previous state and pretty much add in the row and seed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add A and 1 into the selected seeds array, right? So let's give that a try. Save the file, and I'm going to press on the first one. So as you can see, so the first object has been added, that is row A, and then seed number is going to be 1. Okay, so let's say if I again press on the first one, that is row A and seat number 1, again this function is going to get triggered off. Again A and 1, again A and 1 is going to come over here as parameters. So firstly we're going to check this condition, right, with the help of the sum method. So we're gonna check this, that is if the selected seed.row, so selected seed.row is going to be A value if it matches the row that is coming from the properties, that is parameters, it is true, and selected seed.seed, that is 1 value that's coming from this selected seeds array, is equal to the seeds that's coming from the parameters, that is 1. So it is true, right? So this value is set to true, that is selected. So over here, if true, that means automatically it goes into the first condition. Okay, so we're going to execute this piece of code 127 to 132. So here we are pretty much trying to remove that seed out of the array. That is done with the help of the filter method, and this is the condition we are applying. So if I press on this one, the array should become empty, right? So let's give that a try. So there you go. So this is the row A, seat 1, and array is empty currently, right? So the next step we're going to do is we're going to write the condition inside the styles, and we're going to give it a different color if it is selected, and if it is deselected, it's going to be this one itself, right? So that's going to happen inside the render seeds method over here. So as I told, it's going to have an array of styles. So pretty much over here, I'm going to copy the same thing that we have written for each selected, right? So I'm going to copy the same condition and paste it over here. So again, if selected seeds.sum, if this condition is true, that means it is selected, right? So here I'm going to apply the condition, that is styles.selected seed. Okay, now I'm going to write the styles for this at the bottom over here. So pretty much we're just going to change the background color. It's going to be this color code FFD700. Okay, and we're going to say border color, it's going to be transparent. Okay, so save the file, right? So let's give that a try. So hopefully we should see the background color being changed. Okay, it's still not getting changed, so let's look into it where we have made the mistake, right? Oh, okay guys, I think I've made a mistake over here. Okay, we are checking selected c.row equals to just the row, but to access the row it's gonna be row.row, right? My bad, I made a mistake. Okay, over here it's gonna be c.seat, right? So now it should properly work. So let's give that a try. So over here, there you go. That's working absolutely fine, right? So the next thing we're going to look into is the payment part, but we are not going to do the ResoPay gateway right now, okay? Because we're going to do that in the couple of screens further when we have the the snack screen initialized, and after that the confirmation screen, and then the payment part. So here we're going to just test it out how exactly we're going to implement the logic for the payment. That is basically how we are going to disable the seat if at all the payment is done for that particular seat, right? So I'm gonna pretty much initialize a pressable over here at the bottom. It's gonna have a text. Okay, not, let's write some text. Yeah, as you can see that's visible. Okay, so over here I'm gonna say style, so a bit of margin top of 50. Okay, and the next thing we're going to do is we're going to provide a light background color to this with this color code. All right, and a bit of padding of 10. Okay, so let's say this is gonna be a selected seat, something like this, and this is gonna be pay dummy value, that is 100. Okay, so let's give some basic styling for this. I'm gonna say flex direction of row, align items of center. Okay, and then justify of space between. Okay, that's looking better. Okay, so now for testing purposes, as I told, so for any of the selected seats, let's say for these two, if at all I press on the pay button, okay, imagining the payment is done truly, so we need to disable these two buttons, right? That is, it should become gray. So let's implement the logic for that so it becomes easier in the second video, right? So pretty much I'm going to initialize the onPress event on the pressable, and of course it's not going to have proper state, and that is, if you refresh the app and come back to the screen again, it's going to lose its state, right? So if you have a good backend, that means we can preserve the state and we can disable the seat forever, like for that particular film. So over here I'm going to say pay, something like this, and let me define the function over here. So I'm going to say const pay equals to a basic arrow function. Okay, so here we're going to define the logic for the payment part. That is how exactly we're going to disable this thing, like for any seats which are selected, right? So currently it is false. We're going to make the booking status to be disabled if at all we press on the payment button, right? So let's look into that part over here. So inside the function, that is the pay function, let's think how exactly we can implement the disable functionality, right, for a particular seat. So now currently we have access to this thing, that is the selected seats. Okay, that is currently row A and seat number 1 is selected. So that's the thing we're getting over here, and we have access to our rows. Okay, so if at all I press the pay button now, what should happen is we should go into the rows, into the row A, that is whatever it is selected, and we should go into the seat that is selected. So currently it is seat number 1. So we should go over here and we should make this as disabled, right? That's the functionality we need to implement. So let's think how we can do that. Okay, so firstly, inside my function, let's get access to the rows. So I'm going to say const updated rows equals to, I'm just going to take in whatever is there inside of my rows state. Okay, so now anyhow we have access to our selected seats, right? So with the help of this, we're gonna find the index of this particular row and this particular seat inside of our rows entire state, right? So currently we have selected seats as row A and seat number 1. So we're going to find the index of row A over here, and we're going to find the index of seat 1 over here, right? So by default we can say that the seat index of row is going to be 0 because that's the first thing inside rows array, and we can say that the seat index of this particular seat that is selected is going to be again 0, that is pertaining to this seats array, right? So we're going to access that, and pretty much after doing that we're going to have anyhow the updated rows. So we're going to say updated rows of rows index dot seats of the seat index dot the booking status should be disabled, right? So that's the way we are going to implement this. So let's start writing down the code over here. So I'm going to say selected seats dot for each. So for each seat that is currently selected, okay, seat, let's write that properly. Okay, so for each seat that is currently selected, I'm going to calculate the row index and the seat index that we want. Okay, so firstly the row index, so I'm going to say const row index is going to be, firstly I'm going to say updated rows dot, we have something called as the find index method. Okay, so I'm going to access the find index method. I'm going to access the row. So the row dot row, okay, that is this row dot row should be equal to the just a minute, what was its name, seat dot row. Okay, so the name I've taken over here is seat, so to access the row it's going to be seat dot row, and the name I've taken over here is going to be row. So to access the row over here, that is this row from the row state, it's going to be row dot row. Okay, so that's the way we access our row index. So let's write that out. So I'm going to say row dot row should be equal to the seat dot row. Okay, so by doing this we have access to our row index, right? So let's pretty much check it out if we are doing it correctly. So I'm going to say console.log row index is going to be the row index. Okay, so let's save the file and let's press on the pay button. Okay, so pretty much in our case we should get 0 as the value, right? So there you go. So the row index is going to be 0, right? So similarly for the seat index it's going to be a bit different. So I'm going to say const seat index equals to, okay, so here the way we check is, firstly to check into the seat index, firstly we have something called as a seats array. So firstly we need to go into the row index of that particular row for which the seats is selected, right? So now the seats is selected for row A, so of course we have to go into the row A. Okay, so to get the row A index, we already have the row index calculated over here, right? So we are going to say updated rows of row index. So now we have come to this particular object, right? So we want the seat which is selected for us, right? So currently seat number 1 is selected and we are inside the seats array. So to do that, to get the seat index, I'm going to say updated rows of rows index dot access the seats over here dot seats, and again pretty much I'm going to use the find index method. Okay, so for each seat over here, seat, okay, so since the naming is going to be same, I'm going to access s over here. So it's going to be s dot seat should be equals to the seat dot seat, right? So let's look into it once more. Where did that go? Okay, so to access the seat index, firstly updated rows of the row index, that which we have already calculated, and access the seats array, and pretty much again I'm using the find index method. I'm taking the name as s. Okay, so to access the seat inside the rows, it's going to be dot seat. Okay, so dot seat, and then equals to the seed dot seed. This is coming from the selected seeds. So to access the seed is going to be seed dot seed. So in the first case itself it's going to match, so the index is going to be 0 for this as well. So let's give that a try. So I'm going to say console.log seed index is going to be seed index. Okay, so save the file, and if I press on the pay button, so there you go. So row index is 0 as well as seed index is 0. So let's try for any other different row. Okay, so let's say I press on this one, that is 4, right? So firstly let's press on the pay button. So as you can see, row index is 1, that is B, so it is present in B row. Okay, and to access the seeds we have gone into over here this line, that is updated rows of row index. That means over here row index value is 1, so we pretty much go into this one because indexing starts from 0, and we check for the seeds. So it is present over here 4, so the index is going to be 3, correct? So we have access to both the row index as well as the seed index. Now simply what I'm going to do is I'm going to say updated rows of the row index dot go into the seeds of it, target the seeds index of it, and after coming to the seed index just access the booking status, and we're gonna make it to be disabled like this, disabled. Okay, so after doing this I'm gonna say set my rows, that is the modifier, that is this piece of code, set the rows to be the updated rows. So I'm going to say set rows to be updated rows. So the seeds which we have selected, that is going to get booked, correct? So after that I'm going to say set the selected seeds again to be the initial state, that is an empty array. Okay, so that's the way this thing works, the payment, the way we disable the seeds, that's the functionality of this. So hopefully everyone understood. So save the file. Okay, so now we're gonna implement the styling for it, that is inside the render seeds function. Over here I'm gonna say seeds dot booking status equals to disabled and styles dot, let's say booked seed, something like this. Okay, and let's define the style for this, that is booked seed. I'm gonna define it over here. So pretty much the background color is gonna be this color code 989898, and the border color is gonna be transparent. Okay, so let's save the file, and we also have to write one more property for the pressable. So we're gonna say it's gonna be disabled if the seat dot booking status equals to disabled. Okay, so yeah, save the file. So now if I press on the pay button, this yellow color should turn into the grayish color that we have given, right? Because we have defined the function correctly, that is the pay function. So yeah, let's give it a try. So pay, and there you go, that is disabled. So even if I press on it, I can't do anything. And of course it doesn't have state. Even if I come back, go back to the previous screen and come back over here, it's going to lose its state. So when we have the backend initialized, it's not going to lose its state even if you refresh the app, because we are going to store this booking status of disabled for that particular seat in the backend, that is Sanity, right? So that's the way this thing works. Okay, so we've implemented the handle seat press function as well as the payment function to disable a particular seat. Okay, so just a recap of the handle seat press. So firstly we are accessing the row and seat that is coming. Okay, so the row is going to be the row value and seat is going to be the seat number value. So firstly we are checking if any of the seat is already selected with the help of the sum method. You can also use the find method for this. Okay, so if it is selected, then we're pretty much gonna remove it out from the selected seats. So to remove that, we're going to make use of the filter method, and this is the condition that we have applied. Okay, else if it is not selected, you're going to press it on the first time, then we are pretty much going to include the row as well as the seat. right? So that's the way the handle seat press works. And the next thing is the payment. So inside the payment, we have access to the selected seats, as I told, and we also have access to the rows. I've defined it again, that is const updated rows. So here we are trying to find the index of the row, selected row, as well as a selected seat with the help of these two lines, right? So after finding that, pretty much we're gonna update the rows. So for that particular row index and for that particular seat index, update the booking status to be disabled. Okay, and we have applied the corresponding styles for it over here. Okay, so that's the way this thing works, right? So yeah, and one more problem is when we come back to the previous screen. Okay, so there are n number of show times for a particular mall, right? So but when we press on, let's say this one, we have the same particular theater, right? So if I go back over here, come to this show time, again we have the same particular theater, but that is wrong, right? So for a particular film and for all of the different show times we need to have different theaters, right? So let's say if you book on this timing, that is, let's say 9 a.m. Okay, let's say you book seat 1 and come back over here, and let's say for 9:30 a.m. there should be another theater, right? You should not see the same seat booked, that is seat number 1. So we're going to implement that in the second video, that is when we initialize our backend. Okay, so I think, yeah, that's it about this video. So let's see in the next video, and then thank you for watching.